creek. Walk 'em up and down in the summer heat. Same old boy changing like the seasons. Country kid turning to a town right heathen. Country kid turning to a town right heathen.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Old Man Van Running. Here again, as always, in the Old Man Van Cave in the Old Man Van Castle. Now, it's my last week of taper for this Sunday's New York City Marathon, and I'm getting really excited, but I figured, you know what? Before I get into doing some videos around my preparations for Sunday, I'm gonna give you another 100+ mile review. This time, it's basically shoe number 2, or at least the second major shoe that I used through my New York City Marathon training, and that is the Asics Superblast. Now, the Asics Superblast, if you recall my first impressions review, where, by the way, I will leave a link in the description below. The Asics Superblast is actually a neutral max stack height, more than max stack height, daily trainer that's also kind of like, almost like a racing shoe, but not carbon plated. It's a real interesting shoe that has inherent stability, so it's actually marketed a bit towards stability runners, mild to moderate pronators, but it's a neutral shoe. So I was really excited to try this shoe out, right? Because I'm always looking for a lightweight, responsive, stable, neutral shoe that I can wear even though I do have some stability needs. And let me tell you, I have not been disappointed by the Asics Superblast. So going back to my first impressions review, I gave the Asics Superblast an initial rating of 9.25 out of 10. I thought it was an excellent shoe the first few times I wore it. There were just a few things that dragged the score down just a tad. One of those was outsole durability and questions around that. The next was, hey, you know, there wasn't as much support, say in the midfoot and the sock liner as I was looking for. And then lastly was the price, right? This shoe started out with an original price of $220 US. Well, since then, the price has come down just a little bit. It's now right around $200 at $199.95. So the price has come down just a bit. It's still a pretty hefty price for a daily trainer. So that original 9.25 rating was basically around value at $220, very expensive, paired with, you know, a questionable durability of that outsole. I figured, you know, from a value standpoint, may not be the best option. So the question is, how has this shoe held up over 138.58 miles? Is the score still 9.25, or has it gone up or down? So let's get into it. As you recall from my first impressions review, this is a over max stack height training shoe, right? It's got 45.5 millimeters in the rear foot, 37.5 millimeters in the forefoot. So that's an 8 millimeter drop, but that stack height is above the, you know, like regulation 40 millimeter stack height maximum. But for those of us mere mortals out here, you can get away with wearing this in a race, but the elite runners would not be able to. Now, this shoe does not have, even with all that stack height, does not have a carbon fiber plate, but it has this massive slab of flight foam turbo. And it also has a little bit right down underneath here, a little slab of Flight Foam Blast Plus. Just a really good, resilient, bouncy, responsive, not too squishy midsole material. Really do like it. Another thing is the weight is very, very light for a max stack height shoe with so much midsole material. It is only 8.4 ounces in a men's size 9 or 238 grams. So extremely light. It has a nice little rocker here, not overdone, but it really, really does roll you through the gait cycle very good. You see all the high sidewalls on both sides here, so your foot is cupped into that midsole, so that helps with stability. Very, very wide base. So a very stable neutral shoe. The upper, it's a little sandpapery here, but it's pliable enough. I didn't have any problems with hot spots in the shoe here. Plenty of room in the toe box. Not really an overlay or underlay issue like in the Gel Kayano 30. No problems there whatsoever. There just is a little bit, maybe too much room in the midfoot, so I do have to kind of cinch it down a little bit, puts a little stress on the top of my feet. I've gotten used to it over time, so it's not quite as bad as when I first, was struggling trying to get a good lockdown. One other thing, though, that I think really could be done better here is a little more arch support in this sock liner. Just not enough for me. Although my foot is very stable, right? Because you've got that wide base, because you're cupped into that midsole, it's very, very stable, extremely stable. However, I would like to have a little more support under my arch. But as I mentioned in my first impressions review, you can put aftermarket insoles or orthotics in this shoe. This is a removable sock liner, so that really works well if you do need some additional support. I do like the flat laces, nothing's changed there. I do like this tongue. It is very, very thin, but as you can see, I don't know if you can see right there, it's got these little pads right here. So I am able to kind of manage, the stress on the top of my foot a bit by using those pads. There is a well-padded heel and ankle collar, still really, really comfortable after 138 plus miles. No issues there. Still getting a very good heel lockdown. There is structure in that heel counter, so that's pretty good. So really no issues there. Now, let's get to that midsole though. That's what's really important, that midsole and that outsole. So the midsole is holding up very, very well. It is very responsive, not too squishy as I mentioned, really does save your legs during those long miles. The issue really comes down to the outsole more than the midsole. So the outsole right here, you can see the wear where I normally wear, and because it's not that thick, it's kind of pressed into that midsole. So I've only got 138 miles on this, but I'm already starting to hit the midsole on the outside of that. I'm also getting more wear in the forefoot than I normally get. So right in here and right in here. So right now they're holding up pretty good. It's going to be kind of difficult for me to use shoe goo here because the outsole doesn't really rise up above that midsole there, that Flight Foam Blast Plus. So I'm going to have to figure out how to do that, but it's wearing down pretty quickly, kind of as I thought. And as I mentioned, 150 miles, if you're already down to the midsole, $200 or $220 is pretty expensive for a shoe that only lasts that long. Performance-wise, this has been a great, great addition to my training rotation. It has been a workhorse, just like the Gel Kayano 30 in my New York City Marathon training, and I've just really enjoyed running in this shoe. I've used it primarily for marathon pace runs and all the way up to 10 miles, and I've used it on some longer runs where I'm doing like a 3-1 long run, so like a 16 or 18 mile 3-1 long run where the first 3/4 of the run is kind of at a relatively easy or moderate pace, and then the last quarter of the run I pick it up close to marathon pace. So this has been the perfect shoe for those types of workouts. I have not used this shoe on the track. I just think the stack height is a little bit too much for that, but it is a shoe that I've found I've been able to wear on easy runs all the way up to marathon pace runs or faster, right? I think, as I mentioned in my first impressions review, this is a really good option for somebody who doesn't want a carbon fiber shoe that costs $250 or $300 and wants to keep it a little bit lower and have a shoe that's kind of like a super shoe, has the same kind of midsole material, but is a little bit less expensive, and they can use it for training runs, and this is the shoe. So where does that leave me after 138.58 miles in the Asics Superblast? Well, it was a 9.25 on initial ratings, as I mentioned. I'm going to give this shoe a little bit higher rating. I'm going to give it a 9.35 versus a 9.25. A 9.35 because this has really proven to be an extremely versatile, stable, neutral training shoe for me. I would give it a higher score if not for the wear on that outsole. You know, we're not even at 150 miles and it's kind of worn down almost to the midsole. So that's why I'm not giving it a higher score. I still think the price is a little bit high. I'd like to see it closer to say 170 or 180, but it's an outstanding shoe. And if you're really looking for a shoe that you're not going to put a ton of miles in and you don't want that carbon fiber super duper racing shoe, this would be a very good option as a fast or moderate to fast day training shoe, long run shoe for those upper tempo long runs, and a racing shoe. This would be a great option. And it's an option that neutral runners can wear and an option that mild to moderate stability runners will be able to wear with no issues. And, you know, the fact that that sock liner comes out, there's enough room for orthotics or aftermarket insoles, adds to that versatility. So there you have my 100+ mile review of the Asics Superblast. If you like this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button and that notification bell so you'll get notified when more videos are posted. As always, comments. Any and all comments really do help the channel. And as I always mention, if you have running pals, running buddies that you think might enjoy the Old Man Van Running channel, please let them know. So there you have it. Thanks again. And remember, lace up those shoes and let's get out on the roads.
Railroad tracks run along the creek, walk 'em up and down in the summer heat. Same old boy changing like the seasons, country kid turning to a town right heathen.